While preparing to propose to my girlfriend, I decided to purchase a ring in advance to make the moment unique. However, I was aware that I might need to exchange the ring for another one. Therefore, before buying, I clarified the conditions of return with the staff of the jewelry store. Confident that I could return the ring, I made an offer. But my fiancée chose another ring, and I returned to the store asking for a refund. When I was asked to sign the paper, I noticed the fine print indicating that the purchase is final and non-refundable. I was not going to sign this, and I asked the employee for clarification. She called the manager, who returned the full amount to me without any questions. This reminded me of the importance of carefully reading the documents before signing. I was glad that I did so and was able to return the money without any problems. My story happened at People's Jewels in Vancouver. As a musician, I was offered a contract with the label, but the terms of the contract were inadequate. I was particularly surprised by the clauses requiring me to give up the name, copyrights to old songs and compensate for losses if the discs are not sold. I turned it down and posted the music on my Bandcamp. Buying a house with my husband, I came to study the loan documents and found that we would have to repay 25% of the loan. I refused to sign and left. The creditor threatened to sue, but I didn't give up. In another case, I signed a work contract stating that I had to work for at least 4 years. This forced me to be attentive to the terms of the contract and carefully read the documents. At school, when Wi-Fi was installed, I refused to connect after carefully studying the rules, because the school could check my phone. At the car store, they tried to deceive us by offering a loan without interest, but in the end we got a discount. When the tenant offered me to move out ahead of time, I refused so as not to violate the contract. I was prepared for such situations, given the experience of previous cases. By continuing to pay the rent, even though my landlord was very cunning, I discovered his deception. He added an inconspicuous clause to the contract to protect himself, and then stole my deposit. I got angry and decided to sue him. I hate you, John. When we sold our business, my wife's car was registered to the company, but we were not going to sell it. However, in the contract that the lawyer sent, there was a clause about the sale of the car. There is no limit to happiness that we carefully reread the contract and managed to delete this item before handing over the papers to the buyer. When I found a job 350 miles from home, the conditions seemed great. I happened to meet an old colleague at the interview, and everything seemed perfect. I had already rented an apartment near work, and all I had to do was bring the signed papers the day before work started. However, when I took a quick look at the contract, I noticed 3 problems. The first is that the position I applied for was the only one, and the salary will never be increased. The second is that the company did not provide health insurance. And the third is that after I was fired, I could not work for a year in a similar company. I decided to decline the offer. Another situation was with the restaurant work contract. New conditions were sent to us, we studied them carefully, but the clause banning competition caused dissatisfaction among colleagues. As a result, the authorities redid the contract. Once I signed up for a gym membership, and instead of the promised $90 per month, $250 was withdrawn from the card. I left disappointed, but after reading the contract, I found out that it could be cancelled within 2 weeks without explanation. I returned the money. At the dealership, where I picked up my car after repairs, I was offered to sign a document authorizing the transfer of my personal data to third parties. I refused, remembering their previous behavior. While looking for a new place to live, I discovered the difference between the house rules that were shown to me on the spot and those that were sent by email. The rules were stricter than I expected. But I was glad I read them before signing the contract. It was necessary to write a written request a week in advance, which must be approved by all residents of the apartment. Guests can only stay with you until 2200 hours. Guests are not allowed to stay with you overnight. When someone comes to visit you, they must leave a $20 fee to cover the cost of toilet water. I read all this and thought, what, do you want me to pay you more than $1,000 for a room, and I couldn't invite my friends to my place without conditions? After that, of course, I refused them. There were a lot of other trash, but the most memorable was the requirement to pay $20 for toilet water. It's expensive, however, at least they have water in the toilet. If I had to pay this fee, all I would do was flush the water in the push. I was going to start freelancing for a media company. The first contract that was sent to me offered a salary of £650 per hour. I was expected to work 37.5 hours a week, and had to use my car for work, while wear and tear and fuel were not covered. But the most important thing was that I needed to transfer to the company all the rights to any creative work that I had created 2 years before starting work in a new position. I refused. My wife and I had only 3 days left to sign the apartment purchase agreement. When the latest version of the agreement was sent to us, we noticed that our mortgage interest suddenly became 0.2% higher. We asked why, and got the answer that our credit history had been checked and the interest rates changed to match our current credit rating. We felt bad about it and decided not to sign anything. A week later, another company bought out our company and moved us to another state. If we had bought an apartment then, we would have either had to quit or sell it right away. One of my friends decided to take out a loan to buy a car. Before signing the contract, he carefully studied all the terms and found a small clause about hidden fees that were included in the monthly payments. Thanks to this knowledge, he was able to refuse this offer and find more favorable terms from another bank. Another case happened to a friend of mine who was going to rent an apartment. Before signing the contract, he carefully studied its contents and found that the lease term was specified incorrectly. Instead of being sure of a long stay, he accidentally agreed to a much shorter stay. Thanks to his attention, he was able to correct this error and negotiate a longer lease term. One of my colleagues received an offer for a credit card with attractive terms, but before signing the contract, she decided to read it carefully. It turned out that some rules and fees were hidden, which could lead to additional costs in the future. Thanks to her attention, she refused this card and found more favorable terms from another bank. My cousin decided to rent a car for the weekend. Before signing the contract, he carefully read its contents and discovered some hidden points about fines for exceeding mileage and additional costs for additional services. Thanks to this knowledge, he was able to avoid unpleasant surprises when returning the car and made sure that he would not face additional costs. Another story happened to a friend of mine who decided to take out home insurance. Before signing the contract, he decided to read it carefully and found some incomprehensible points about insurance claims and payment terms. Thanks to this knowledge, he was able to ask questions and clarify all the unclear points, which helped him make a more informed choice and choose the right insurance company. Thanks for watching. Share a story when you were glad that you studied the papers before signing.